All right, people. So we just had the final press conference for Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn 2, and this was a bit of a doozy. This was an entertaining one. This is the fourth press conference these guys have had altogether between two fights. Nothing is ever going to top the first press conference. I mean, that's something special. You know, the definition of are you not entertained? You were entertained that first press conference. Oh boy, culminating in the egg slap. I mean, just every time they come face to face, you're just sitting thinking, really? No. They don't do it, but that's how entertaining these can be, and this one was no different. I found this one was definitely more intriguing, certainly, than the first press conference for this rematch, which happened a couple of weeks or maybe a month or so ago. We had the dads there. We had Nigel and Chris Eubank Sr. We had Rick Reno in a, what was it, leopard skin jacket with shades. He looked a bit like Joe Stunner boxing there, to be honest with you. I don't really know what the purpose of him being there was. But we heard from the trainers, we heard from Tony Sims. Tony Sims, to me, like, Bomac seemed confident. And I don't want to say Tony Sims didn't seem confident, but I don't know, just the way he was speaking, to me, obviously I'm sure he believes in his guy, but he didn't, for me, that just kind of seemed like, I don't want to, how would I say it, like a disconnect? I don't know. But he didn't strike me as, bags of confidence in Conor or anything like that. Certainly that was what I was gauging from Tony Sims anyway. But of course, the main thing was the promoters. Ben Shalom did his usual thing, hello, and then whatever he says until bye, because that's Ben Shalom pretty much. They passed it to Eddie Hearn. Now, Eddie Hearn has had a bit of a nightmare trying to get a word in when Chris Eubank Jr. is there. The first time around, he basically got no words in at all. The second time around, he thought he came up with a cunning strategy. When Chris Eubank Jr. started with the Eddie, he decided, instead of me doing this press conference, I'll bring in Frank Smith, which is about, the same as, get that dead body in and see if he entertains anyone. That's Frank Smith. So, not exactly setting the bar particularly high. Then for the first press conference for this rematch, again, it was much of the same. Eddie trying to get his point across. It resulted in him pretty much starting to shout then to try and get it across. And he realised, all right, look, it ain't going to work. Cunning strategy he came up with. He decided to play Silent Night. I think after the 15th, it's then when it doesn't become, I think that's when you can accept the Christmas songs playing. Even now, November the 12th, I believe it is today, 12th, 13th, it's still kind of like, really? Do we have to hear the Christmas songs right now? So he played Silent Night and then got his point across by very cleverly using these banners, thank you to His Excellency, live on the zone. Even had fake news, even had some other words there. Had a plum, called Chris Eubank Jr. a plum. And Chris Eubank Jr. realised, all right, there's not much I can do. I can't talk over him, although he did do, he talked, over him, but Eddie Hearn wasn't technically speaking. That was entertaining. And that was very smart by Eddie Hearn. I got to give him that. I really do have to give him credit on that. Then it passed to, it's crazy, isn't it? This was the Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn press conference, but I believe I wasn't alone in this. We all wanted to hear from the dads. We all wanted to hear from the dads. Chris Eubank Jr. did make a point to refute the allegations that Chris Eubank Sr. was actually paid to attend the first fight. Now, Chris Eubank Sr. denied them. He did deny those allegations, but not without, I should say, how would I explain it? So he denied them and he said that's not true. He did it in a bit more colourful way, an eccentric way, as Chris Eubank Sr. is. But the first thing he said when Jamie Ward asked him, he said, is it wrong for a dad to take money? No. And then kind of Nigel Benn said gobbledygook, and some of it definitely was that Chris Eubank Jr. or Chris Eubank Sr. was definitely saying. The long and the short of it was he was trying to, I think big up his son and refute the allegations that he took money to attend the first fight. But he did it in his way. And I love the way he spoke about having, a good, I think what was he said, a good reputation, unlike some Nigel. Still takes a dig at Nigel Benn. Nigel Benn was a lot more, grounded, just saying they were trying to, spin it about him and Chris Eubank Sr. And he was like, no, this isn't about me and Chris Sr., whatever he wants to say. It's about Conor and Chris Jr., which it is. He spoke about fully believing that Conor Benn would win first time around, but ultimately he said that when he saw him in the ring during the fight, he said his technique was all over the place. He was swinging, he was looping shots, which he was, and Nigel was basically saying that's not what we trained for, that's not what we planned for, and if we don't get that again, if we get a more grounded, a more measured Conor Benn, then he should win the fight. Conor Benn, whatever you think of Chris Eubank Sr. and whatever you think of Conor Benn saying that he took Chris Eubank Jr.'s soul that night, and Eubank Jr. responded with the best way you can by saying, I won the fight. Yeah, that's kind of how you shut that down, to be honest with you. The back and forths are somewhat entertaining. You know, I know Chris Eubank Jr. has a tendency to be able to rile Conor Benn up, and Conor Benn, very much like his dad, tends to bite on them a lot of the time. You know, basically, and this is what I still don't understand. You know, Conor Benn speaking about how, you know, I'm moving up 2 weight divisions, there need to be T's and C's and this, that, and the other. To me, mate, you're just taking away if you win. You know, I mean, it speaks volume when Conor Benn's asked about Terence Crawford, not in this particular press conference, but in the past, moving up to fight Canelo, and is like, I can't believe he'd do that, move up 2 weight divisions and not look for this and that. It's like, well, no, mate, that's someone who believes in their ability, and that's someone who wants to challenge themselves. You can say, well, I'm moving up in 2 weights, so, you know, I'm going up to middleweight, even though you haven't fought at welterweight correctly. Chris Eubank Jr. pointed out in 4 years, so, I mean, how much of a welterweight really are you now? To then turn around and be like, well, there needs to be T's and C's. It's like, I've used the analogy before. It's like, right, you know, I'll play you at this game, but I get cheat codes, you don't. Well, does that mean you're better? Not technically. But it was more measured Conor Benn in a sense of he was saying that, you know, look, I believe that I'm just going to win, whether it's by knockout, whether it's on points, whatever. I'm going to be a better version of I was last time. Don't know if Chris Eubank Jr. can bring the same out of him. The rehydration thing didn't really come into it. It was more a case of, well, Chris Eubank Sr. was talking more about the case of, you know, making sure he's on weight and stuff like that. Conor Benn did say, you know, oh, you only rehydrate at 7 pounds, you know, the next morning. Well, he had a limit of 10 pounds to hit, so yeah, that don't surprise me. They're probably making sure there was no ifs or buts. That's not to infer that he came in 7 pounds heavier the night of the fight is ridiculous. You see what I mean. So that was it. We did get a little face-off between the two at the end. We also got a bit of a face-off. It was more of a half-hearted face-off between Nigel and Senior. It resulted in them, you know, embracing at the end. So we are all set to go for the weigh-in. I believe the weigh-in is on in the morning, and it'll be a ceremonial weigh-in at 6 p.m. I believe it's on the York Hall tomorrow. So yeah, we'll know tomorrow morning roughly what the weights are, who's made weight, and what's basically happening. So those are my thoughts on everything. Let me know yours in the comment section below. As always, people, if you could, I would appreciate if you could hit the like button, drop a comment, hit the notification bell, hit subscribe in particular, all of that good stuff. And until next time, I will probably do a live tomorrow because I haven't had a chance this week. And I think for me, live, sometimes watch-alongs are easy, but a generic live during the week, sometimes you need to just be up for it. But I think tomorrow we need to do a test, we need to do a dummy run on how the watch-along is going to go, and why not do a live stream tomorrow. So I hope you'll lock in for that sometime tomorrow evening. And until then, I'll leave it there. I hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. People, until next time. Peace and love.